and you can quote this on me. There is no way the Orioles or Red Sox make the playoffs this season. Yeah, yeah. There's no way. There's no way.
I set the bar really low at the NBA predictions.
I don't think all Mavs fans look into the stats like I do.
It's not the great value Target brand toilet paper or whatever. It's the Charmin Ultra Strong.
I don't know if Nick Nurse is the coach for the Raptors. I don't know if he's the reason why they won the 2019 championship. I feel like that was more of a team effort.
The Mavs cannot say we do not miss Seth Curry shooting threes.
This questions the firing of Dwayne Casey, who I think is a very underrated coach.
To me, the Capitals really pushed all their chips for this season.
Hello, I'm Mike Grimes, and you've been listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our MLB Opinions of the Week. Once again, we are talking about injuries, which is sad. And the man both our teams have suffered about this. Mine, but of course, your team and the man's team I'm talking about is Austin's Yankees. And of course, Garrett Cole had elbow issues.
But also Jonathan Loizaga tore his UCL.
Yes. Forgot about that. Oh, wow. Okay. And then Strider, I see, is having an MRI. I don't think we've heard any news.
Not yet, but Shane Bieber, Yuri Perez both tore or are going to have to get Tommy John surgery. And there's three different camps, and I want to see which camp you reside in. I would like to say that I think that all three of these contribute to the injuries. But Tyler Glasnow has an amazing interview where he's talking about it. Have you seen it?
That was something. Yeah, I saw it where he's talking about the grip.
Yeah. How like a lot of those old pitchers had some grip on the ball, but now that it is the way it is, he has to hold the ball harder, which he feels hurts his arm. So there's a grip field. There's a field that the pitch clock, you pitching more quickly with less of a break, and then there's the your arm's not supposed to be throwing as hard as these guys are throwing now. That's what's hurting their arms. I'll let you go first. Which one of those three do you think is most important?
So I know I've been in the camp of like talking about like your body. It's just the effect of the body throwing that hard. But I listened to that Glasnow interview, which was, I believe, 2 years ago when he had UCL tear. And it was right after the sticky stuff had been banned or they became more restrictive on it.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic interview. I loved hearing about it. And, I haven't pitched, so I was going to talk to you about that. The way he talked about putting the ball deeper into his hand and having to grip it more, to me, I'm residing in that camp. That would be my number one.
I agree, because he's doing that to get a higher spin rate. And if you were allowed to use sticky stuff, or if it was maybe not the old sticky stuff where it was insane rates, but just something that is more than what it's using right now, is I think would be significantly better for people's arms. Because when here's my argument against the people who say, oh, your arm's not supposed to throw 100, right? Okay, well, was your arm supposed to throw 80? Like, your arm isn't built to throw that fast anyways, even if it's 80. And you don't see people throwing 80 hurting their arms significantly because they're not playing in the MLB. But you can't convince me that someone is like, our bodies are meant to. We're meant to throw. We are the best in the animal kingdom at throwing things. But no one can tell me that they were supposed to be able to throw a ball 70, 80, 90, 100. Not just 100. It's the difference between 90 and 100. I don't think is that much regarding elbow strain, regarding ligament strain. I think what changes is what you said, the grip. When you're holding it harder, that tenses up the tendons, tenses up the muscles, and causes it to where you're not as loose. And when you're not as loose, when it's tighter, you have a better chance of hurting yourself. And I think the pitch clock a little bit affects it because you are pitching quicker, and it could cause you to not necessarily have the most perfect form because you're rushing a pitch. But I think the least amount of it is they're not supposed to throw this hard, because there's many. Nolan Ryan, he tore his UCL, at 44. Okay, maybe if you're that old, would it affect your ligament at that age? Okay, or 44, 45, 46. Yeah, I could probably hear the argument that throwing that hard, you're not supposed to do it. But he was throwing in the hundreds his entire career and didn't hurt it until he was 45, 46, 44. So I highly doubt that a guy who's thrown that many pitches takes that long to do it if it's just how hard you're throwing. I think it's more on the grip and holding it harder. And the MLB has to change something because too many pitchers, especially high-value pitchers like Shane Bieber, Yuri Perez, Garrett Cole, are hurting themselves, potentially Spencer Strider, because of the way that the league is right now.
Yeah, and to kind of backtrack, I think all those fields, they are factors. I would agree the most. I'm going to push back. I think there is something, because when I look at Jacob deGrom in like throwing 100, and Strider has done that too, I just think there's some level of impact. And so that's why I think the faster speeds.
Again, I would like to ask, like, Randy Johnson or Nolan Ryan went 20 plus years. Like, Randy Johnson also pitched for like 25 years. No, like, he's not known for hurting his arm 100 times. And they were throwing in the hundreds consistently. And they never got hurt. I think the problem with DeGrom isn't the fastball. I think no effect. You know the pitch that is hurting DeGrom?
Maybe slider.
Yeah. His slider that he's throwing 93. He's gripping it so hard to throw it that hard and to get the spin on it that makes it such a great pitch. That is what's hurting him. And it's trying to hold the grip a certain way. And sliders are already hard on your arm. They've always been. But gripping it tighter and throwing it harder, I think, is the reason. It's not the fastball. Aroldis Chapman would have had three UCL tears in his career if that was the reason why. If it's just by how hard you're throwing, he's throwing 107. Or not 107. 105.7 is what I meant to say. Basically 106. And a Chapman, I don't think, has ever had Tommy John surgery. So I refuse to believe that is the plain reason. It may be a little bit contributing, but I don't think it's significant enough to even worry about, because there are so many pitchers that have thrown that hard and not gotten hurt.
And that's a fair point. I also think the grip isn't what is. I think Evaldi throws it. Is it the splitter? Is that heavy on the grip?
A splitter's like this.
Okay,
I'm showing Kevin if you guys aren't seeing, but
yeah, I was just kind of
the ball is deep. The ball's deep in your hand. And when you hold it like this, and yeah. Yeah,
I believe, because Evaldi has had issues. I believe Evaldi's had 2 UCLs, and then he's had a reconstructive one too.
Yeah. Here's another thing I'll say. If the harder you throw, it hurts your arm more. The difference between 90 people who are throwing 94 consistently don't hurt their arm, right? But you're going to say 100 does. Well, again, I'll bring up Chapman throwing 106. Well, the difference should be even greater with Chapman because they're throwing it even harder. And that doesn't happen. Therefore, I just don't see the relevancy. I think it matters to an extent. Because you are not supposed to be throwing a ball that hard. But people in the past have been doing it for years on end with no injury concerns or minimal injury concerns. I remember when Tommy John, there's a reason why Tommy John was the first person to do it, and there's people pitching for years and years and years before that. There's a reason why in baseball, when you're a pitcher, people say don't throw a screwball, which is what Devin Williams throws. He's basically the only pitcher in the MLB currently that does it.
I think really that's what I was thinking of, not the splitter. I was thinking of the screwball.
Yeah, that's what Devin Williams throws, and it's extremely difficult on your arm to throw because of the grip and the arm action that you have to throw. It's not because of how hard he's throwing. He's throwing that pitch 84, 85, 83, 80 flat.
Yeah. And to talk about Glasnow said he wasn't using like Spider Tech. He said it was sunscreen and just rosin to help him get that feel and that grip.
And I've seen the whole Trevor Bauer thing where if you just mix sweat and rosin, it becomes sticky and the league will ban it. At some point, like, what's the point of having the rosin bag out there if you're not allowed to use it with other substances that are usually used? Like, if you're wearing sunscreen, which I bet a lot of players do because it's 100 degrees outside, some places outside, and you're using a rosin bag, you could do that accidentally, not even trying. You just itch your arm and then grab the rosin bag without even thinking about it. So it's stupid. I don't necessarily know what the MLB needs to do, because I no matter what, there's going to be backlash. But there can't still be all-star level pitchers, best pitchers in the league, continue to get hurt. Because at some point, we're not actually seeing the best possible baseball being played because a lot of the best pitchers are hurt.
Yeah, and to talk about that, you mentioned Garrett Cole, and he's a high profile. You can also look at Strider. Well, I know we're speculating, but he's dealing with an elbow issue. And something that I thought about, Strider was working on that curveball. You remember that, this offseason, he was working on curveball, and that kind of goes into the grip too. You got to have a different grip for the curveball, and he was getting a lot of benefit from that. So that's something too that goes to my point of grip, because we know Strider has the slider and fastball, but he was adding in something else for a curveball, and he was becoming one of the top pitchers in the league, if not already. He's a young guy, so this does hurt the MLB. And I do think the MLB can kind of ease up on the sticky stuff. They can do more rosin and sunlight, or sunscreen, not sunlight. But because I think the point of that was to increase offense in the MLB, but the new rules have already done that. These stealing bases, the shift restrictions. So I don't think, and I don't know if I agree. I agree there needs to be more offense for the viewer, but I don't think that changing the limitations on sticky stuff would have too much of an impact. Whereas the impact, where we agree, the impact on the pitchers is far more important than less offense in the MLB.
Yeah, because like I said, you aren't seeing the best possible pitchers, or best possible matchups, I should say, between the best hitters and the best pitchers. I mean, we didn't even talk about it, but Ohtani had Tommy John surgery.
Yeah,
this is one of the most generational talents in the league.
Yeah. Walker Buehler had his second. I also think one thing that I believe is a factor is kind of the specialization of sports at maybe a young age. We were kind of in this age too, except I didn't pitch. But once you realize you're a good player or realize you have a chance, it seems like when you're 10, 11, and 12, you're just going to do baseball your entire career, basically. You don't. And so you're just pitching more. And I think that builds up the accumulation of stress on your body. I believe I brought this up with the basketball because you got AAU. But it seems like now you have more travel baseball teams. So that could be also because when did I think Greg Maddux didn't start pitching till late in high school, correct? When did he start?
I don't know that story enough for me to say. I think you're right, but I think you're right.
Okay. But it used to be high school is when you started, when you're 15, 16, 17, you're like, okay, I'm going to start focusing on baseball more. Not when you're 11 and 12 or even earlier. So I think that's a factor, but that's kind of my own personal thing. The three major ones that you brought up, I think those are all factors, but I do agree something has to change. And I think because you have batters have tar, you can put tar on the bat, right? Or you can spray the bat. They have different options.
Yeah, they put pine tar on the bat, yeah.
So I think you could do something like that. I'm not saying bring Spider Tack back. No, just allow rosin or give them 3 bowls or something of sticky stuff that they can use.
Yeah, it's almost like, and this is not to get political at all, but in Portugal, they had a drug issue. I'm sure you know about this story, but they made the drugs legal, and the amount of illegal drug usage, or the drug usage, went down in the country. After making the drugs legal to use, it went down because you could regulate that. If they just made it to where they have a certain type that is not obviously spider tack, but is less grippy than that, but still better than what they have right now, they could regulate it, give it to all the teams, and they could know when a player isn't using it because it would be the exact same thing for every player because they're all using the same substance. So it would, I think, be the best way to mitigate it. Now, again, there's going to be backlash no matter what, but so many pitchers being hurt hurts the game.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I think just the idea of a regulation, that's something that we could do. And if you regulate it and like you can still check, but I'm sure there's something they could do with regulation. And I think the point of just they stopped that because that offenses were at an all-time low and Rob Manfred believed, no, we need offense to grow the league, which I sort of agree with, but also not. There are other ways to do that. And I think they've done that. So I think they can start to be like, okay, let's start to implement or regulate more the options for pitchers.
Yeah, because you never really know who the best team in the league is with so many injuries like this. Because some teams really do rely on that one ace, and if he gets hurt, it really could be a detriment for your entire team.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just, like, to me, players are such an important part of the sport, so it stinks if you're not going to see Strider, you're not going to see Garrett Cole and other guys. And injuries, of course, are going to happen, but it does seem to be at an even high rate the past few years.
It definitely has.
Yeah. So that's all we got. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.